Sonia, thanks so much for joining us at Soap Hub today to talk about your book. And I love the title of it. What if it's easy? How did you come to uh, write the book and get involved in helping people?
Wow. So I think I was always interested in mindset and being in the entertainment industry certainly kept that going because it's obviously you get to Hollywood and you're like, I'm going to be a star, and then all of a sudden you get there and you realize, oh, and I'm going to be rejected a lot. Right. So I learned pretty early on it wasn't always the best actor that had this blazing career, but it was the
Sure.
people that had the strongest mindset, the people who were willing to or able to persist and to keep themselves positive amidst a lot of that rejection. And so I started studying way back. I did mindset probably as much as I did acting. And I got, involved in Tony Robbins and the forum, and I did hypnosis. I would do these little hypnosis tapes for myself. I did something called heart math. And I was always listening in the car or reading and just constantly um, studying that material. And it made a huge, huge difference in my life. I even had a coach, in fact, Tony Robbins' head trainer, an amazing person, Joseph McClendon III. And he was my coach back in the day before people even knew what a coach was. And it was very transformative. And so I just always loved it and studied it and used it. And then as I, kind of went through, I was pregnant with my daughter and not
Mm,
acting quite as much, and thought, since I was the person that studied this and knew it and believed in it, often people would come to me and ask, for help or questions. And so I thought, well, maybe I should just get this coaching certification and really know the actual skills behind it, not just what I know. And so that's what I did. And then I really loved it. And I love, love, love more than anything. I'm so passionate about helping people find their dreams or seek their dreams. I really believe with every fiber of my being, everybody's got their purpose, their destiny. And anything I can do to help them overcome those obstacles and get them on that pathway, that's exciting to me. So I started to shift and I started to find, wow, I'm really loving this. And then I got involved in the National Speakers Association and I was president of that. And I kind of just started to move much, much more into that world. It felt so rewarding.
I see, there's a lot of wasteful stuff on social media. Like, why am I scrolling through looking at all these videos? But there's also a lot of profound um, memes and sayings. And one that I really like is what if it turns out better than you possibly could have thought?
Mm.
And I think most people don't feel that way. And so when I I read the title of your book, What If It's Easy? That kind of struck a similar chord. And I think that so much of a mindset, a healthy mindset, a positive mindset is really important. And do you have examples, either through people you've worked with or in your own life, where keeping a positive mindset um, may have changed an outcome or affected how you dealt with an outcome?
Absolutely. So the title actually came from an instance, and I talk about it in the book, where I was with my husband, and we just had my daughter. So she was 6 months old. And he, at the time, he's a television producer, had a first look deal. And they had called him back to LA, and they were going to have a big meeting. And this seemed like it was going to be a renewal of this contract. And so I'll never forget, Sunset Boulevard. I was at the bottom of this car deck, waiting in the car for him to finish the meeting. And he came out and he looked like he had just seen a ghost. I was like, what happened? And he's like, we were fired. And I was, oh boy. And so what happens now? And then he just went off like, oh my God, what are we going to do? This is a disaster. How are we going to ever make any money? Now we have a child, and on and on. You can imagine that sort of negative tirade.
Sure.
and desperation too in that moment. And he, for some reason, always had this feeling like if he just made $1 million, then he was going to be okay. It was just this number he had in his head. And he was just like, how does anybody make $1 million in this business? And I was like, well, somebody's done it, so it must be possible. And he's just like, yeah, but it's not. It's impossible. And I was like, but what if it were easy? And he just looked at me like, but it's not. You're in this business. It's not easy. It's impossible. And I was like, yeah, but what if it were easy? And then for a second, he stopped and he started laughing. And he's just like, I don't know, if it were easy, I guess I would just start my own company. I was like, really? And that hadn't been any of the scenarios we had been talking about. And he was like, yeah, I guess I would. And he talked through it just in that moment. And he works pretty fast. So the next day he reached out to a friend of his. They formed an LLC. They started a company. And at the end of the year, he made $1 million. So I always call it the $1 million question. It really can shift when you step into that. Not only does it changes your perspective, because I think, like you said, we tend to have this negative bias. We look at what we're not able to do, all of the challenges. But when we step in just for a moment of what if it were easy, what would I do? Or what if it were to work out better than I expected? What would happen? Then suddenly you shift, everything shifts, your body shifts, your nervous system shifts, and it accesses your brain, or what I like to call sort of your body intelligence, and it taps ideas that are incredible and very personal for you.
That's an amazing story, and such a great story. What he's a producer?
Yeah. So he
Can
went on to have like tremendous success. And it all started in that, what if it were easy?
you just share a few more details on the steps taken to go from like forming that LLC to getting the business that led to that $1 million? I mean, did he produce movies or?
Actually, at the time he was doing screenplays. So he had written movies, but he was also, it was kind of at that big opening of reality TV.
Oh,
And so that was they decided, he teamed up with his a partner at the time. They since split, and he started his very own company, Stephen David Entertainment. So that's what he's got right now. But back then they had the Idea Factory, and they were really good at coming up with ideas. Like, that's probably why they had it. And they had been in the business between the two of them quite a bit. So they did have contacts. So they really just, they formed the business, but then it was like, all right, well, what have we got? And then they just, brainstormed ideas, and then who do we know? And they started to look at like everybody they knew, and they just started pounding the pavement, really. And they got a little show, and then they were able to parlay this into a bigger show. Yeah, the one I think that made the $1 million was Big Medicine. It was actually a friend of his who was a doctor that does the gastric bypass surgery. And so they did a show on that, and it did
oh,
really
did they tell stories of people who had it and their journey
good
after?
transformation. Yeah.
I know people who've had that, and there are so many success stories that come from it, and so many challenges as well,
Absolutely.
because it's so much of our connection to food is emotional,
I know.
mental, all up here. If I eat this, I'll feel better, or I remember feeling better after eating this, or when I ate this, so I'll eat it again and maybe I'll feel good again. Wait, I don't. Let me eat more. It's fascinating.
I actually had a client slash, I'll call her friend now, and she was very obese, and she did do the gastric bypass surgery. She's lost over 200 pounds now. I'm so proud of her. But she would say too, she's like, the one thing I did not know or realize or appreciate was how much of this is really mindset. And she actually did a lot of Moticise, which is one of the other things I do. She did like the walking form of it. And she's like, anytime I started to want the food or that sort of emotional thing kicked in, then she would go and do like a little walk and go through the mindset of it. And then she turned it into swimming. And it's amazing. I love, love, love like the success that she's had. She
That's
worked
amazing.
hard, but it's fantastic.
We're at a time right now. I mean, your book is coming out at a time where, or will be coming out at a time where, the strike may still be going on, and people are going to be having to, they already are, recreating themselves, re-identifying and establishing themselves in this business.
Yeah.
There's the threat, I guess is a good word for it, of AI coming along and replacing a lot of jobs and kind of creating content that I don't know that it's going to be satisfying.
Right.
Uh, what advice would you have for people who are facing a crossroads now or in the future with, especially in this business or in
Right.
any business?
In any business. No, I mean, I think look, I'm a firm believer of following your passion. So if it's possible to keep going within the realm of what you're truly passionate about, then I would always say go there first. And there are often ways to parlay your passion into different avenues. So, is there a way to use your skill set, your passion, your love, and make a difference in other capacities? When I first started, I was doing presentation skills. So I used acting for presentation skills. That was like an obvious jump for me. Um,
Right.
so it was a way, and then I also taught like an acting class for non-actors to try to help them sort of find themselves, come out. So it was a way in which I was connected to something that I was deeply passionate and had some skill set on, but still was sort of turning it towards this other field that was calling me. And I think there's lots of room and opportunity for that when you open the door to looking at that and to seeking that out and to sort of digging and finding it. So I would say stay open. Look at what you love, look at what you're good at, and see how else you might be able to use it.
In your book, do you draw on many examples from your acting career and your time on soap operas, especially Guiding Light? Because Lucy certainly went through her travails and her. I mean, that was a very. I don't think I'd ever seen a storyline like that before, where Brent had recreated himself as Marion and was just buddying up to Lucy. We kind of tuned in every day, screaming at the TV, like, when is she going to realize that uh that this is Brent, the man who attacked her?
Hmm. Yeah. I was wondering the same thing as Sonia. So, it's really interesting that you asked that. And then and maybe it'll have to be in my next book if there ever is a next book. A friend actually had said, you should take a look at some of your clips and see if any of them are applicable to what you do now. And
Sure.
so I actually had a client who's just a really diehard soap fan and knew the show so inside and out, and just has one of those brains where she could tell me what clips they actually were. And so
Oh
she
yeah.
picked a couple for me. And I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh my gosh, Lucy really was a little life coach. She got stuck in such a dramatic storyline, but there were so many instances with Alan Michael and my dad where she really was kind of spewing great, great life coaching advice. So, but I hadn't realized that when I was writing the book. So I didn't necessarily include those kinds of things in it, but I definitely include things about sort of being in the industry and
Mhm.
and the mindset required to overcome certain obstacles.
Do you have any memories of working, I mean, with two of the best, most respected actors in the business, Justin Dees and Rick Hurst? They
Oh,
were, I think, got like, I don't know, 7 Emmys or 8 among them
uh,
or between them.
each
Just
I think they
fantastic.
both have so many. Yeah.
What was it like working with them? And do you have memories of anything you might have learned from them?
Oh gosh, I loved working with them. I feel like the luckiest person ever in soap operas. And I loved, different things from each one. I think Justin, you never knew what you were gonna get, like, ever. He was notorious for, picking you up and throwing you over his shoulder and, or giving you like a head noogie or something in the middle of a scene. So it was always okay, here it comes.
In the moment.
Right. So there was always like a little nervous excitement about that. But I think that's really such a great life lesson because we never know
Right.
what's coming at us. We never do. And we can think and overthink and all the rest of that stuff. And when you get there in that moment, anything can happen. So it was such a great lesson with him about being present, being in the moment, and being open for whatever happened, and trusting, that it was going to be perfect just the way it was, however that turned out. In TV, you always could say cut. In life, that's not as easy, but there's always a way. And those spontaneous moments are so very often the best. So I think that was a definite Justin D's buzz lesson. And Alan Michael was just, and Rick really, was
Sure.
really Rick, because Alan Michael wasn't as generous, but he was just probably one of the most giving actors I've ever met. He was just, and positive. Oh my God, he'd just come bouncing in every morning. It's like, boom, it was like this balloon of energy, and it just light up the room and the space. And he was always right there with you, always wanting to make it the best, always wanting to help you be your best. And as a result, it up leveled both of us. So I think it really was such a lesson in how that generosity and how that caring about making the other person better makes everybody better, right? So
Exactly.
sometimes there's a little bit of this like, oh, well, competitiveness or something, and it's so the opposite. It really, really is. Giving
Yeah.
giving makes, it makes the pie bigger, it makes everybody better, it makes things more enjoyable, happier, and was just such a great life lesson and such a wonderful environment to be in.
If the scene wins, everyone wins.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's amazing how difficult sometimes people make that, and in TV and in life, right? Of
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, it's a great
Um,
life lesson.
it's been a little over 10 years now, but I guess the last New York soap, One Life to Live, your second show, um, went off the airwaves, and it's kind of too bad for
Yeah.
many reasons, not the least of which is young actors who come to New York used to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Anne Heche, Julianne Moore, Marissa Tomei, Meg Ryan, Kevin Bacon, they all had, you know, stints on those wonderful, I think they're all P&G shows too, where they got to act and learn from people who'd been doing it for a while and launch their careers. It's kind of a bummer that those shows aren't around anymore. Are you in touch with any of the old Guiding Light or One Life gang?
I've recently, and in fact, it was actually when those soap clips came in, and I was looking at Lucy being a little life coach, and I was just appreciating Rick in that scene and just like how good he was. And so I did write to him because we had talked, but it had been a little while, and I was just like, I'm just looking at this clip and just admiring and appreciating how talented you were, and I just wanted to say thank you. And just like it was really a moment of just, I don't know, wanting to share my kind of awe in him. And he was so happy, and he wrote back, and then we talked, and he's back here on the East Coast. So
Yes.
very exciting, and we do have plans to get together. So yeah, so I am happy to be back in touch with him. Some of the other people that I was kind of closer to have sort of moved away. And especially I think COVID really dispersed people. I love gosh, what do they call it? The strikes, the bowling event
Oh,
that
Stars and Strikes.
thank you. Yes, that one. And I kind of love that because it's such a great opportunity to see people again and to, Liz Keeper, she's doing a little coaching too. So sometimes, we connect in that realm. But I love that event because it's a nice time to see people. And I always try to go just because I think it's a great cause and because it's fun to see people again.
Um, I want to make sure I get this out there, but what if it's easy? Is it available starting in October?
It's actually on pre-sale right now.
Okay,
It's available. I mean, it's really available anywhere, but here's my little plea
sure. Where's the best way to go?
is to go to
Yep,
barnesandnoble.com because if I get a certain amount of pre-sales, that makes them excited and it has much, much more opportunity to get into bookstores. And it's really kind of one of my little bucket list dreams, is to have that in the bookstore. So yeah,
yes.
if anyone feels so inclined, I would love, love, love and appreciate if you could go to barnesandnoble.com and pre-order it there. And I will be doing some special stuff. Make sure to sign up also on my site, onto my newsletter, because I'm going to be doing a lot of cool things in the next few months and lots of free or very, very low cost things and opportunities to, I don't know, kind of jump in and hear what we do, or maybe up level your own life if that's something that you're looking to do. So soniasatra.com and barnesandnoble.com for whatever.
bn.com. I will make sure those links are included in our story.
Thank
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for your time today. This is a great interview and it's a great book. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing your time and your memories of guiding light.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure as always. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Absolutely. You too.